Do you think that they will put boots on the ground for this? American
Yes.
boots on the ground?
Yes. I mean, as I said, we already have the strike groups out there. All it takes is for Hezbollah or Iran or Syria or who knows who. I mean, you're putting American troops in the center of a hornet's nest and you're kicking it over and over again. And whether it's us kicking it or it's Israel kicking it, it doesn't really matter. We put these carrier strike groups out there claiming that they're a deterrent. But what they really are a tremendous provocation. This is the same line of reasoning that we use when we encircled China to defend Taiwan, but then it makes China have the imperative to move on Taiwan because they're like, well, this is only going to get more and more challenging for us, so we might as well do it now. It's just terribly dangerous. And then because we're off their shore and we get attacked and we're killed, then we're going to respond by going, oh, we're the victim here. It's like,
Right.
well, why were we there? Why are we there? This is not our country. I just like this entire framework, this mental framework that the American people have and have had my entire life, that we are the policemen of the world, we are the righteous leader, and we get to defend and solve all ills. It's totally detached from reality. These people don't want our guidance. Stop trying to parent them. They are sick of it, and we will end up in a hot World War III if we don't wake up soon. And even if we do wake up, we'll still probably go bankrupt because of the war on terror over the past 20 years. It's destroying this country, and it's destroying the fabric of our civilization, and we have to stop. We have to.
Well, going back to those $1 million lobbyists or $1 million analysts who get paid to figure out how to manipulate political consensus by the masses. I think that the average American doesn't have an appetite to be in the Middle East. I think that when we exited Afghanistan, most everybody agreed that was the right thing to do. We just had disagreement on the way it happened, right? There was really little, some people disagreed on exiting, but they were the minority. I think most people were like, yeah, it's just time to get out of there. We didn't accomplish anything.
Just Lindsey Graham.
Just Lindsey Graham. Oh, we shouldn't have left on that. Right. Yeah. Lindsey. He can always be counted on, right? Him and Nikki Haley, I think, can always be counted on to be warmongers. But where these think tanks, these $1 million think tanks, where they figured it out, and they always know, they're like, we just got to hit the right button. If we hit the right button, we could just get everybody riled up and back to where we need them. And with this one, it's Israel. It's very specifically Israel. So if it's Assad is gassing his own people, Americans are like, yeah, okay. Well, even if a lot of us don't believe it, but even if, because we know you guys do this stuff to us to try to get us riled up into war. But even if he did, it's not our problem. Like, it's not our battle. He's in a civil war. Leave it alone. Same thing, the Taliban now has Afghanistan. You don't see Americans rising up saying, oh my gosh, we got to go back. We've got to go back and save all these people from the Taliban. And the Taliban's like marching through the country and oppressing all the women, telling them they can't go get educations. I mean, it's horrible. There's no doubt about it. But we're not rising up saying we got to save the Afghan people and we've got to save the women in this country, right? We're not riling up even about that sort of thing against Saudi Arabia. We don't say, well, the women there are completely oppressed. They can't even go to the same Starbucks as the men. They have to go to like separate sides of the Starbucks, and women couldn't even drive up until just a few years ago. And, the people are living under a monarchy. I mean, that's an actual dictatorship. So nobody has this appetite. But the minute you say Israel, the minute you say Israel needs our help, Israel's under attack. Israel's been under attack since its inception against all of these, the indigenous people on that land, the Palestinians, against their neighboring Arab countries who they worry that there's this idea to expand. Because, again, if you go to Israel's line of thinking, they say, well, we got to get rid of all these people who want to kill us. It's an existential crisis. Well, then once you move the Palestinians out, you've got them still on your border, so you could continue expanding and expanding and expanding. And the real Zionist project, if you go to the real hardcore Zionists, they believe that they should have pretty much all of Lebanon, all of Jordan, quite a bit of Syria, quite a bit of Iraq, maybe even all of Syria, quite a bit of Iraq, and a good chunk of Egypt. If you go with the Bible, right? Because that's always the reasoning. God promised this land. Well, God promised a lot more land than current modern Israel. The land is actually quite a bit more when you actually splice out what God said. So if you're going to go with that, So I think these Arab countries are really worried about this. They're rightfully thinking, I don't know, like maybe then it'll start seeping this way. And then they see what's going on in Syria and Lebanon, and they think, and the Golan Heights, and they're thinking maybe. And then Israel kind of does this, well, we gave Egypt their land back, so we gave them back some land. So it's all in your head, and maybe it is a little bit, and different factions. But there's a real concern there. So, there's the minute, but the real thing is the minute anybody says Israel's under attack, suddenly I do think American troops will be deployed.
I completely agree. I mean, they're already deployed. It's just a matter of, do they catch flack, and do they end up actually getting on the dirt and into the fray?
And how many do we send? Do we send even more? Do we maybe
Right.
2,000 is one thing, but do we deploy 20,000?
Well, I think it all comes down to if our missile defense systems on those ships actually keeps our soldiers from getting killed, because they've already been attacked multiple times over the past week. It gets blamed on Iran. I'm not at all certain that it's Iran-backed militias as much as it's just people in that area that hate
Right.
us
Right.
and are like, get out of here. So yeah, I think that if there are U.S. troops that are killed, this is exactly why I've been so concerned about our eternal funding of the war in Ukraine, is that we had special forces that were on the ground in Ukraine that were training up the Ukrainian troops on how to run all of our systems that we were providing them, because they didn't have a clue on how to do it. But if we have our troops on the ground and they're killed by Russian bombardment, or even if it's on accident, that's still going to be utilized by the military-industrial complex in this country to call for an outright hot war with Russia, the nation with the most nuclear weapons on Earth, the most advanced nuclear arsenal. It's insane. And it's the exact same dynamic here. If we have troops that are in harm's way, all it takes is one stray missile or an intentional one, and you will have the Lindsey Grahams of the world, you will have the Jesse Waters of the world, you will have the Nikki Haley's, the Ron DeSantis. All of these people will absolutely try and make their political bones by creating more American troops' bones in the Middle East. And I am not going to just stand by and watch it happen. I grew up in San Diego. I've got a lot of military veteran buddies of mine, Marines primarily, that I saw, the before and after of their time on the War on Terror, and they all know that it was a disaster.
Yeah.
Those that have managed to deal with the trauma of it are still not who they were prior. It's absolutely horrific, and that's just from what I've got to see. The other side of it, where I don't get to see, which is the dead innocents, it's just unspeakable evil. It really is.